fat and fucking ugly. Whatever. We're
So
like,
many assholes in the
and
gaming
it's
in the gaming stuff.
on the internet in general, man. It's
Well, yes,
crazy.
yes. The internet
I've
in general, but gaming for
I
sure is a lot of assholes.
I went on this EK shared this article about this woman that had this threesome at the Stampede on Facebook.
Yes.
Did you see that?
We're live,
So
by the way.
okay. Anyway, like it's really funny because like in the article it talks about how like all the men, everybody's like, "Oh, you guys are awesome," and then they're people have been slut shaming the girl.
The double standard.
Yeah, exactly. So and then
So
pretty much right at the end of the article, like in the comment sections at the bottom of this Vice article, like after which they have framed this entire dialogue and how it's ridiculous. The first comments are like, "What a slut that girl is," you know. Come,
it's but
it
that's the way
drove
the
me nuts.
internet is, and it's like I've seen what was it? Someone this girl I went to high school with is always posting all kinds of stuff about First Nations stuff and other things, and she'd posted this one like First Nations article thing, and then so this friend of hers I guess wrote, thanks for this, and then she wrote like in bracket, don't read the comments, don't read the comments, don't read the comments, because it's like there's some articles like things about women, like misogynistic issues, First Nations issues specifically, where as soon as you get into the comments, like the misogyny and the racism just spews. Like your brother, remember he's talking about ski culture, and
Yeah.
it was like these girls were talking about like, oh, how you can start a conversation with a girl on a chairlift, and then all the dudes in the chat are like, I got a blowjob on the chairlift once, like, yeah, I'd like her to, and just like it's super, like they took it right in the, and I'm just like, man, the internet is so full of just idiots. Anyways,
All right. Well,
it's the
speaking
whole
of,
anonymity thing. We lost Crofton here. He's in freeze mode.
he was frozen in quite a good facial expression too. He looked like
He
he had
looks like
something
sort of engaged, listening.
important to say. All right. Well, we love delays
The
here
show
at the
goes
Good
on
Batter.
without him.
We love delays. The Good Batter Bullshit podcast.
Hmm.
All right, Mike. So, let's see if I can't give you a bit more room here.
Yeah, I've had audio issues and got disconnected, so I'm just going to check the back of my computer to be sure that everything is not loose. I'll be back.
Not a euphemism or euphemism.
Aloof is euphemism.
A souffleism. Oh man, I'm so not with it today. It's gonna be brutal, guys. La 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 la.
How's the job hunt going?
Oh, it's going good. I mean, it's going good in
Job
the
hunt is
sense
never
that I
fun.
find lots of great opportunities. There's no shortage of like cool
You're like,
things out there.
CEO of some multinational. You're like, that could be me. I'll apply. They're like, no thanks.
No. Well, I am aiming high. It is true. Maybe not CEO high, but I think I'm a pretty smart person and I'm capable
Yeah, you
of a lot,
are, but
so
resumes are bullshit. We should do that on the show
you
once.
should actually do resumes. At
Like
some
you
point.
might be smart and whatever, but people look at your resume and
And make some assumptions about me that ultimately are not true, and they miss out on a great opportunity. Now Michael's frozen. Oh my god.
Maybe it's the who's
Oh,
hosting the
GBB's
call.
back. It's great. Okay.
I don't know.
No, let's not talk about call hosting. I'll blow a gasket.
All right.
Okay,
I'm
I
in
don't know
a
what
good
I-
mood,
I-
but my patience is short today.
Both
So
you
you don't-
guys froze.
I don't want to have.
Yeah, it's what happened to me a second ago just happened to you. So it was like for me, I got both of you froze and then I got dropped or whatever, and then
Oh, well, at least I didn't drop, I guess. All right, well, let's just start before it gets even worse, which I'm sure it will right during the middle of the show.
or
All
at the
right.
beginning.
So ticks are coming in. Everyone all
Yeah.
ready to go?
Mhm.
All right.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. Random topics, unrehearsed conversation, and quality reviews. My name is Michael Hodgins. I'm one of your three hosts here on this podcast. With me, as always, is Mr. Beau Schwartz. Hello, Beau.
Hello, good, bad, or bullshit listeners. Hello, Michael. Hello, Crofton.
Yes, and of course, Crofton Steers. Hi, Crofton.
Hello, Michael. Thank you for this glorious opportunity to chat with you on a weekly basis. It's
Well,
appreciated.
almost weekly. I was away last week and we had to miss a show because of it. I'm sorry for that, but I was in like cottage country and the internets were not so. There was internet, it just wasn't good internet. So I was like, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, so
What's
timing's a little off because they're actually going to be missing a show last week. Oh, it will have been last week because it takes a few days for the show to get up on the internet. I think I'm
Yeah,
the only one that's confused here.
we're
I'll
like
shut
in
up
the
now.
future, or is it the past? In any case,
Yeah.
What's funny to me is that you manage to do shows when you're in like Malaysia, but you're like Canada, cottage country. Nope. Draw the line.
well, there's more internet it was Indonesia as it was, and than there was there. Oh, but also, it wasn't so much just the internet. It was the fact that it's like a cottage with paper thin walls and like my parents and Andrea's parents and like
Fair enough.
siblings and babies crying. It wasn't gonna happen. I was like,
What are you saying about Star Wars in there, Michael?
I disagree completely.
Who are you talking to?
It's one of those you do these family weeks sometimes where it's like extended family and stuff, and you're just like, man, I need some alone time. After we got home, I'm like, oh, I need to just not be talking to someone who I'm related to. Have you guys ever read any Anne Rice?
Anne
Oh,
Rice, the vampire lady?
yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I've only read Interview with the Vampire.
you did read it? Okay.
Yes.
I'm
But
curious.
years ago, like years ago, high
Because
school.
we were like, let's look for an audiobook for this road trip, and I was like, oh, and it wasn't an Interview with a Vampire, but like I like the movie Interview with a Vampire. It was pretty good, even though I'm not big on vampires generally. I thought it was a good movie, and then I thought, okay, well, and it was not Interview with a Vampire. It was called The Vampire Armand, which is, I guess, one of the vampires. And then Andrew and I listened to it for, I don't know, a couple of hours, and at one point I was just like, man, all these vampires do is have sex with everyone. Like, it was like, and the vampire was like a boy, and he's like having sex with the old men, having sex with other boys, having sex with like women, animals. It was like every child. I was like, no, all this book is, I'm like, man, if you're a vampire, you gotta be like really into the sex of all kinds, apparently.
It's funny because like Twilight and True Blood and all these things that have been out more recently have gotten a lot of flack for sexualizing what used to be a scary monster in vampires. But the truth is that like Anne Rice did that
it was Anne
years
Rice.
ago. Like
It's true. Give her the credit for kind of bringing the vampires into the new sex
like,
era, I guess.
an interview with the vampire. Let's just look at the cast for one. We got Antonio Banderas. You got Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Christian Slater. I'm salivating already.
Heartthrobs all
This
around.
is yeah. I mean, that's a sexy
Christian
movie.
Slater's a heartthrob?
Yeah,
Well, he was at that time
and also he wasn't a vampire. They saved the real beefcakes for the
for
vampires.
the vampires. This
Oh,
is
that's true. He was. I
Who
remember
played
that.
who
Yeah.
played Armand? Was it Banderas?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, his backstory is he's had lots of action.
Thank you for that.
Lots. Okay, and on that note, maybe we should get to a random topic.
I think I know what job I want to apply for now. I think I want to be
Vampire?
a vampire.
I don't know if you'd have the stamina for it.
He definitely has the hours.
That's true.
Yeah.
He likes the night, not the day.
I always thought it would be great to own like a cafe that you called the Vampire Cafe, and your shtick, your gimmick would be that it opens at sunset and closes at sunrise, and that's it, and there's never an exception. I bet you enough people would go because of the weird novelty. Like, you go 3 in the morning and it would be open, and there'll be like weird goth people in there and emos reading poetry and things. And I like how I've just been judgmental of you.
There you go,
Yeah,
Beau.
you're not like, I would like to be there. You're like,
No,
I'm sure some
I
losers
think
out there would enjoy this kind of a thing. I think it's a great idea.
Hipsters.
I always love things that are open all night long. And not that I'm ever up in the middle of the night, but I like the idea that it's like, oh, if you got insomnia, you can go someplace and there'll be someone there to give you a drink or something.
And when I worked night shift in Montreal for like almost a year, and at that time, like even Montreal, which is a big cosmopolitan city, like there's not a shit ton of places that are open at 3 in the morning. And in terms of getting your lunch and food and stuff, it's really annoying sometimes. Like you plan out, you're like, okay, on this street there's this place that's open. So yeah, 24 hours. Do it, businesses. I don't
It's
care if you run in the red.
I'm lucky because there's that bagel shop near me, the Kettleman's. It's
Yeah.
open 24/7, like every year. Our upstairs tenant Jason, when he lived here, he one time came home very late. It was like 2 in the morning, and there was raccoons all in front of his door, and he couldn't get in. So he's like, "I just went to Kettleman's and had a bagel like 3 in the morning." I'm like, "Awesome."
Which is ironic because that's where the raccoons came from.
Probably.
Well, okay.
Just
So
gorged on bagels.
now,
Okay.
now we've ruined our Kettleman sponsorship. I have a phone call to make after the show to explain why
Kettleman's
we're not.
great.
Yeah,
It's true.
I'll
They
put a
have-
good sticker on their window.
I feel like I just had this picture of them chasing you off.
Probably
Actually,
throwing day olds at me.
for those that missed last week's episode, we have stickers. And we're giving them away for free. All you have to do is write into our show, goodbadbull@gmail.com, and Michael or one of us will send you these stickers, which are verdict stickers. And if you check our Twitter account, you'll see exactly what they look like. And your mission, should you choose to accept when you get the stickers, is to cast your verdicts on things, take pictures of them, and send them to us via social media or email or whatever.
Yeah,
So
they're
that-
nice stickers.
so that
It's
we
fun to
can
stick them on things.
Engage in this, judging of things.
Judging of things.
That's
We
probably
all
the-
have a right to throw our opinions down.
Yeah.
All of us.
All right, but now let us do this in an official capacity. It's been 2 weeks. I'm feeling rusty. You got to practice piano every day.
Let's get the machine going here.
That'll get that cottage air out of your lungs.
Yeah. Suck it down.
Oh, the
Whoa, easy, Beau.
topic today is virtual VR. I guess for those in the know.
Am I the only one that had that hiccup?
No, I had it too. But
Damn it.
You just max headroomed so hard, and I'm like, did Mike do that on purpose? How did he do that?
so if I understand correctly, the topic is virtual reality.
No, it's
Yeah,
virtual,
it did
virtual,
come through.
virtual,
Yeah,
vir-
virtual
vir-
reality.
Virtual reality.
All right. Anyways, yeah, virtual
That-
reality.
That worked well for it, though, I must say. If there's any one topic that should have happened on, it's virtual reality.
Was it an audio glitch or like a video glitch?
It was max headroom.
No.
He's like, you were like virtual reality. I've never seen that before in my life. Like,
It's like the Dire Straits video.
I
from
swear
Like a
did.
glitch in the
I
Matrix,
feel
if
like
you
you
will.
did that on purpose somehow, and I'll find out.
I don't think I did.
All right, well, but it's actually
Be sure to edit this out of the final
no,
show.
because it's apropos because we're talking about virtual reality. Think about that concept for a second. We have reality, and philosophers might argue reality is not really real. But let's just agree that the things I have a keyboard here, I can touch myself and feel that I'm made of flesh.
We're already going through
Tangible.
Beau's day here. I got a keyboard here. I can touch myself. It's reality.
So
That's what reality is.
There is reality, okay? And then we have this thing that we're trying to accomplish, humanity, for some reason. It's to make a virtual depiction of reality. And one might argue a book is kind of virtual reality in the sense that you travel into your imagination. And there's
All right,
this,
I'm gonna stop you right there. Before we get into books as virtual reality, maybe we should be like,
well, no, but what I'm
the
trying
virtual reality we talk. Come on, it's like the
Yes.
It's like
It's
you
this-
own one of these machines. This is like
the simulacrum of a real experience. Like it's as if you were there. So
right. So not a book.
well,
It's not
I
a
think
book.
throughout history, how we've immersed ourselves in fantasy, in man-created fantasy, there was a path of evolution. So we won't spend a lot of time on the book thing. Maybe it was a dumb comment, but currently, what we're trying to do is put TV screens in front of our eyes to trick ourselves into having this 3D depth perception when we look at the screens. So it's not just looking at screens, but looking at things in the same three-dimensional way that our own eyes function when we look at the world around us. We have depth and we have a sense of motion. And so currently, where the tech is we strap those monitors onto us, we put headphones on, they have sensors that sort of indicate the tilt of your head, so sort of mimic there. We're developing gloves to mimic your hands in this fake world. Virtual reality is an imagined real space that we're working on.
But it's not even imagined. Like imagined is taking it back to like dreams or books or whatever. But like the VR as it's referred to, or virtual reality, like that you have these things like Oculus Rift and other products that are talk about virtual reality. It's the specific interface with your head, as you were describing with these screens. And to our listeners who might have heard this before, Beau owns one of these machines and has been nice enough to let Crofton and I try them out. And if you haven't tried one, they're pretty convincing. Even with the bad graphics of some of the demos, it is impressive how when you put this thing on and it tracks your head movements, how you feel. You are convinced you're in this other space. It's a very interesting experience. And go ahead.
Are we going to be doing like so? Yeah, so the big one is Oculus Rift. There's a lot of companies that have these now. Valve, Sony. They're mostly primarily in the video game space. They're being used. There's also what's known and what's being sort of developed at the same time. And I just want to know if we're going to be talking about this or if it falls in the same category, which is sort of like enhanced reality. And Microsoft, for instance, has their HoloLens, which essentially, it's like glasses that you wear, or Google glasses are sort of like it. You wear them, and then they can display things. So on your table, it could display the world of Minecraft, is what they showed at their conference. So somebody can like, it's like playing with virtual Legos on a table or whatever. Yeah. So that's it's an enhanced reality. It's not quite the same as the others. But
it's actually referred to as AR, like augmented reality. It's AR.
Augmented reality.
It's funny how like I would contest that. Like, are you really augmenting anything? Like, I get how it's an interesting tool. It can provide you up-to-date information. But in any case, I think that is different than virtual reality. Virtual reality being that when you're pulling yourself out of the real world, and you're getting this experience that's really tricking a lot of your senses into making you feel like you're actually in this other space instead of looking at a screen and being aware that there's a screen, it's maybe there's a wall behind it, whatever. You feel like you're inside this space. And I mean, just to make, like, think of the Matrix as virtual reality, or the holodeck in Star Trek. Yep. Things like that, where it's like fake things, but you feel like you're immersed in them. They trick your senses into thinking you're in a real space, but you are in fact in a virtual space, a computer-generated space.
Sure.
So
you could meet in an online tavern with a bunch of other people in a similar headsets through the internet, and it's not a real tavern, but it is a real tavern, and it's real people.
I think as soon as I think of virtual reality, I think of well, actually, this is probably not even appropriate. I was going to say Philip K. Dick sort of type sci-fi, where a lot of stuff he deals with. I don't know this necessarily. I haven't read all his stuff, but a lot of it is dealing with what's reality, what's not reality. And when you start playing with that kind of stuff, it's like there's
VR is almost
this
more
kind of technology.
VR is almost more William Gibson and Neuromancer type stuff.
Well, certainly Neuromancer, but I feel like when I think of the implications of it, the stuff that Philip K. Dick deals with sort of strikes me more. Because when I tried on Beau's headset and saw some of these demos and some videos and things, and then left, I was like, man, I was like, I don't know what I think about this. And my initial response was, aside from being impressed at the technology and thinking like this, I was really blown over how convincing it was, and yet this is the first kind of like just imagine where it's going to be in 30 years or 50 years. Imagine when this is going to be, and then so after thinking about it for a bit, being like, my initial reaction is like, I don't know, this is a good thing. Like it made me a bit scared for. Well, as much as the practical applications, there probably some really, really cool ones, but I think there's some other things that are really worrisome about this kind of technology.
Well, it's funny because a few episodes back, I talked about dividing this show, GBB, into sort of piles or buckets, if you will, and each topic, falls into a certain pile. I would definitely put this virtual reality topic up there with the artificial intelligence topic that we did seemingly forever ago. And I recall that one very well because I was arguing with you guys almost the whole time on that one, where you were both like, oh, Crofton, think about all the science fiction and the future and all the good that can be done and all this. And I'm like, Stephen Hawking said this is going to kill us all, right? And you guys.
Well, okay,
No,
you're
just yeah, I'm paraphrasing
you
because I'm
summarized it in a way that I'm like, I don't think that's what I said. I would say, any of your listeners, please go listen to that podcast to get proper context.
Go listen to that episode to get proper context. But you both definitely said that it was good, and I did not. And at that time, that was one type of sci-fi technology that is now slowly coming to life in real life. And here is another one in VR. And while I can see like some of the dangers, both like health and that sort of thing, people getting too immersed in these things as they become more and more real, I can also see some of the benefits and the overall like downsides to it compared to the upsides. Like I don't see VR destroying mankind like I could potentially see artificial intelligence doing, right? So like I see it as a kind of interesting experiment, and it could lead to situations where people across the world are able, as Beau said, to meet in an imaginary but created space that feels real and share an experience. It could be that like an Alzheimer patient is able to relive a memory or something like that through a recreation. Like these are all things that could potentially happen through VR. It could also be that you have somebody that never goes outside and is immersed in their in essentially a fake world, and I can see how that is not ideal, but I don't think it's overall an issue that would make me want to not pursue VR as a future technology.
Well, I mean, back to the comparison between this and artificial intelligence, and why I think almost this would be a greater threat than is artificial intelligence. And to like my view on the AI was that a lot of science fiction portrays it that it's like, oh, you're gonna get like Hal from 2001, like some demented that wants to for some reason kill humanity.
Sociopath.
And my view is like they might be totally inert. You might get an AI and it's like, whatever, I don't care about humans. We don't know. And it's an external thing, right? So it has that fear-based thing because we don't know what AI would be like or what it would do to us. It's external. The difference with VR is that it's us. It's our own social structures that are going to then become even more online. And a lot of people are already talking about we're living in this era of we're more connected than ever, but yet people are more isolated than ever. And that these are we have increasing rates of depression, anxiety, things like that. I'm not saying these things are related to social media necessarily, but in our modern culture, a lot of these sort of social ties and way humans traditionally lived are changing very quickly, and I don't think we adapt that fast. And I think that's why we're seeing some of these sort of shifts in mental health and things like that. And I think that VR is almost more worrisome because it has the potential to lead to us degrading our own sort of human social connections in favor of what might be for a lot of people more attractive realities. Like, so it scares me more than AI does. For that reason.
Yeah, this like conversation got so depressing. It got so real, man. Just because of you guys have concerns. Like you look at the technology and say, what does this mean when it becomes widespread? Which they're not commercially available at the retail level yet for consumers. That's supposed to happen at the end of the year. And even when they do release, there aren't really any killer apps yet for virtual reality that are going to get people to be playing. Like there's cool experiences in there. There's nothing that's going to keep you in there for more than an hour or two at a time in the current technology. But you guys are imagining the future where, it's fantasy land face online VR only. You have to live in here. And do people leave their real lives for the virtual lives? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I feel like
that's part of it. Yeah,
I feel like it's hard to know. It's hard like because clearly we're we're using our capacity to be like awesome as human beings and figure these crazy things out. Like there's no other animal that does what we do on this planet, and you know, it's hard not to look at this stuff and be like, man, it's cool. Let's explore the cave all the way to the back of the cave to see what's in there, and, you know, see how far we can take this virtual reality thing. Yeah, you know what? There will be souls that get shattered on this expedition who spend all their time in virtual reality, but like, does that still make it worth the opportunity cost to figure out how virtual reality can help us evolve as a species in the long run? Because I feel like this discovery into how our mind works and how we can map out and use our mind in non-traditional ways are like the path towards evolution, you know? And
well, I do think that that Mike and I aren't being unreasonable. We're not doing anything we didn't do in the Traveling from Mars or Artificial Intelligence episodes, where we're talking about where this is going to be in the next little while, because yes, nothing is out this year, but they've made a lot of advances already. We're talking about a technology that when I was born 30 plus years ago didn't even exist. You had barely had computers. It was like barely pixels, and now we're at the point where we're taking our first baby steps into VR. In 30 years, I think it's very fair to say that it could be extremely advanced. And I saw an article the other day about this phenomenon in Japan called hikikomori. Hikikomori, I can't even say it, but it's
it's the self-imposed male exile. Like,
yeah, exactly. Millions of young people in Japan are just remaining holed up in their homes for years at a time, and some of them are dying in their rooms and stuff like this, and it has to do with enhanced social anxiety and this sort of thing. So I think making that connection with VR and enabling what the internet has already done is fair game. But I do agree with you, Beau, that I do feel that this is worthwhile stuff. And going back to your book analogy, I don't think that it's so ridiculous in the sense that, like, television and video games and a lot of the things we do for entertainment now are just like less refined versions of this. Like when I play a first-person game on PlayStation or whatever, what it's been trying to do since the 90s is simulate, that I'm this person. Like when I play Skyrim, for instance, where you name your character and you control all that sort of stuff, it's role playing. You're supposed to be sort of playing this role. This is just the next step in that, and I'm very excited for that as a gamer, as somebody who like enjoys those experiences. And while I do think that it's possible for certain people to become alienated or too involved in them, I don't think that's good enough reason to like stop this technology from evolving. And it's one of those things, like when I watch science fiction stuff, like you guys mentioned the holodeck and Star Trek, other things like the Lawnmower Man, any of these things, I always thought at the time, man, that looks awesome, that looks super cool. And for me as an adult now to be like, some people are going to have a hard time adapting to this, I don't know, like it's not enough for me to not be enthused about this stuff. I'm still like, I tried it. It seems cool. The potential seems there. Like I am kind of excited about it.
Though I mean, I think your example, I'm not even going to attempt to say the Japanese word because I hardly got it. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of this, and it's not even just gaming. It's also things like Facebook and that kind of social media aspect. What you think of as those things get linked into virtual realities, it becomes. We're all living more online than we used to, but once you start having now a technological sort of platform that gives an alternative to reality, to because right now we interface through these little things, right? You can't ever fully remove yourself from it, but once you put that thing on your head and you're tricking your senses into being in this space, I think it's gonna suck people in even more than video games do for some people, or than TV, which I also think is kind of an epidemic in a lot of places of how much people watch TV. I think of my own parents who watch an insane amount of TV, and I grew up watching way too much TV. And as you Crofton said, that's just an early, uncomplicated version of this. And there was times in my life where I would watch like 10 hours a day of TV, and it took me a long time to get off of that because I made a conscious effort. But and if I think about it, the reason why, like if I think about this is just for me, it's not certainly not for everyone, but my life was kind of boring and bland at the time, and I was more interested in watching Magnum PI and Murder She Wrote because it was entertaining and I liked it, and I still like those things. But literally, like I would get up and I'd watch A&E for like 4 hours, and then I'd do something for an hour, and then I'd watch afternoon shows are on. Like I did that for long periods of time, and that's pretty like back then we didn't even it wasn't nothing was on demand. You just watch what was on. Imagine virtual reality. Like if I have a boring life, a shitty job I don't like, and if your social life happens to be degraded, something like VR can offer you this complete alternative that might make you just want to be like, well, what's the point? Why should I go out and engage? It's easier. To maybe just like you can just make a persona, drop into this place, do things that you can't do in reality. It's almost offering something better. And Beau, you talked on like how humans evolve, and I think that our brains and our bodies and our perceptions all evolved around this physical real world, and it took millions of years. And I think dropping humans into this new technology right away, I don't know how quick we're going to evolve with it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't pursue it, as Crofton saying, but I think there's definitely there's going to be some blowback from this that's, I think, not going to be good. There might be some really interesting applications. I totally agree with that. But
yeah, it's more along the lines of, I feel like humans are poised. I don't know that we've really started this in earnest yet, but I feel like humans are poised to provoke a jump in their own evolution. Like it seems kind of like cheesy sci-fi stuff, but I feel like if we could get to the next step in the evolution of humans, of what our species will look like tomorrow, like we would do it. And people are trying, we are trying to be better humans. We promote healthy eating and we have exercise, but we're failing. All these efforts, are generally, I think we're failing in a big way, but we are concerned with becoming better. And to me, evolution...
But think about that point. Sorry to cut you off, but think about that point, because why are we failing at all these things of like, we know what it takes to be healthy or whatever, but we fail at it because we're offered alternatives that are easier and more gratifying. So it's like, it's hard exercise. We just did jogging. We all agreed that it's hard to jog. It doesn't feel good to do it. We know we should because it makes us in shape, but it's easier to just not do it. And same with food. Like you could eat broccoli all day long, or you could eat some sweet pizza pops, and those are and one of them tweaks your brain in a way that the other thing can't compete with. And so I just think that's the point. And we see all these of these things that are like more attractive than what is the natural, and human beings tend to go to those things. And I just think VR is like that.
But what I'm saying is like, when I talk about evolution, it's just like, well, what if we don't need to jog to be strong? If we can figure that out. I feel like this is a lot of, there's a lot of everything we have to do to make ourselves better is challenging, and so not everyone can do that. Is there a way that we can make it both engaging as well as giving us that benefit, if that makes sense?
And I think that the health thing is kind of a false choice, and I would detach those things. Technological advancement in the human race and like healthy eating and exercise are two completely different conversations. And I do understand how you can be like, oh, somebody could use VR and then go out and go jogging later in the day. There's no study or proof that says one leads to the other thing. They're completely topics. What I was going to say is virtual reality, when I made it as an extension of television, it's more of an extension of video game playing in the sense that it's active. Like you don't just go into VR and sit there. You were doing something active for the most part. You're actively engaging with it. So for me, that's a positive of it right there. I think like Mike and even I, when I was mentioning the Japanese example, we raised points that are worth considering as you're going forward with this technology. But for me personally, I don't care, because I'm confident that that I'm not going to be sucked into VR land and forsake all my relationships and burn everything to the ground and just live in VR town and that sort of thing. I know that it'll become an interesting extra thing in my life. It will allow me to play some sweet video games in a different perspective. There may be some tools or things that are added. Maybe I'll be able to create in virtual spaces and stuff. All that really excites me. And I know that some people are going to be left behind. Some people are going to be like those Japanese people are now in our current society. People are going to wall themselves off like they do now in anything from TV to MMOs to whatever. So, but does the fact that that's going to happen with a select group of people put me off VR as a whole? I'm sort of selfish in this regard. I don't really care. Like, I mean, they're going to have to. We always have issues as a society we're going to have to deal with. Right now, people are talking about the downsides of smartphones and this sort of thing. Would I get rid of smartphones? No, smartphones are good. They're useful or whatever. It's just like there's proper balance, and there's things that are going to have to be done to balance VR as well as it becomes more and more prominent. But I am excited for it, and selfishly that means, like, I'm sorry, screw the people that aren't going to be able to control themselves.
Well, at least that's honest, like
clearly said.
But yeah, because
leave the weak to die.
We already have gambling as a problem that we can't solve, like, because our whole freedom thing is like, hey, you've got the freedom to gamble, but you should do so moderately. And maybe you just shouldn't do it at all. And then people are like, well, you know what? I'm going to sit here 12 hours a day pulling on slot machines until I have no other concept of any meaning of life except sitting here and doing this thing. Like, I think people get into these psychological holes with a lot of different things. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we've talked a lot on the Exclamation Mark podcast the past few weeks about serotonin and dopamine rewards, like in video games and in all sorts of walks of life, and that there are companies and organizations out there willing to exploit people about that. And like, that's a problem we have now that isn't introduced with virtual reality. So it's hard,
right? But like, as you say, it is a problem.
It is a problem,
and companies will exploit that tendency of human beings to do that kind of thing, and so will the makers of VR. They'll realize this is an even more attractive platform, and I do think the proof kind of will be in the pudding. When people try out a VR, it's fun. It's one thing to watch a TV screen show someone trying to VR, and having tried it, and I really appreciate you letting me try it out, Beau. And like, I was like, wow, this is crazy. And you could just see the potential. And I can see how it will suck people away. And Crofton's totally right. I mean, as with all things, people should learn self-restraint, should learn to find balance in their lives, and that kind of thing. But it's just, you have these other forces that are like fighting your personal will. They know how psychology works to try to get you to come back, and you have to fight them all the time. And the thing is, the better they can do that, the more people are going to not be able to do it, or be in situations where it's offering such a better thing than what reality can offer, that they're just going to be like, yeah, screw it. And you know what, and just to argue with myself here, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's like, if you are getting a car accident, you become a quadriplegic. VR can maybe turn your life in a completely different way. It might allow you to have experiences you thought you'd never have again. It's certainly not wholly a negative thing. I'm just saying there's going to be implications.
And we're making sort of, as Beau pointed out, it's baby step times with VR, and we are making assumptions about how things are going to go. We're pointing to issues that already exist and extrapolating them in the world of VR. Of course, I mentioned the Alzheimer's thing, you're mentioning the paraplegic thing. There could be tons and tons of positives associated with VR other than entertainment. And it is a technology that feels like a big step forward, and I'm excited for that. And I came off harsh earlier, but and I do stand by what I said about, like, the people need to learn restraint, and we can't necessarily hold back things or hold everybody's hands, because some people are going to become obsessed with this. But the idea is that, like, like there's the designer of the applications that you use when you use VR. So Mike gave the example of like people designing stuff to make you like really addicted and stay in and want to stay in this world and blah 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 blah. I have that's nefarious, and as I've mentioned in I have a blog and in other podcasts, that's bad news. I don't like that. I don't like predatory business practices in this. But that is not VR, and that is not what they're doing here. They're providing a platform, and it can be used in lots of different ways. And we can extrapolate the worst, and we can extrapolate the best. I personally, not knowing which way all this is going to go or how things are going to fall, I'm so excited about it that it's hard for me to get hung up.
Think about this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You talk about being excited about it, because we spend our whole time talking about like a very real possibility of people getting addicted and liking virtual reality better than normal reality. Sending a camera up to the moon, let's say, and filming a robot on the moon, driving on the moon, then sending that back to Earth and letting everyone have as close as possible experience to what it's like to stand on the moon and look out at the Earth. Like imagine like that's not a game, but that's an experience you'll only get from the ultra sensory overload or whatever from the virtual reality design, as opposed to just seeing it on a TV screen. And you know, I think they're very as close to life possible experiences you can achieve with the virtual reality technology that even if we don't learn anything from it, I mean, that's just cool. I want to like have something land on Mars or go to the bottom of the ocean or depths that I would never go to in life and have that experience. I'm not a pro snowboarder, but wouldn't it be cool to see what it felt like to do like crazy ass crap on a half pipe that like Shaun White can do and shred those, you know, waves or whatever it is they say, like, you know, or be Mick Jagger, you know, on like what it's like to actually be him singing in his concert, you know, and get the experience from the point of view. Like virtual reality is going to enable a lot of experiences that engage with our empathy, which I think is kind of one of the fascinating things about it. Now, it's not mind transplant, so we won't really get all of that, but some experiences will be out there for people to do, and some of it will be dirty, like what's it like to be, I don't know, a drug dealer, and what's it like to, you know, I think of Strange Days. I love that movie from the 90s or 80s, Strange Days, where it's like, oh, let's get an experience of what it's like to do a B&E and get chased by the cops, and that's dealt, like that program's dealt on the black market or whatever, you know. But I think there's something educational that humans find in mimicry. So when we see a dog, in order to, you know, when we're kids, we pretend to be a dog. We go, "Arr, dog's like, rah, rah, rah." And I feel like the virtual reality experience, more so than watching things on a screen, kind of engages that level of learning where we're kind of in the shoes of what we're trying to learn about. So I think there's lots of opportunity there. That excites me.
It's funny because everything you say about it makes me be like, man, it's not good. It's what makes me think, because it's like your example about reality, like say something like going to the moon and you land something. That's a neat point. Yeah, like none of us are gonna, you know, it's a handful of people that are gonna be able to do that in the foreseeable future. So that's neat. But then it might be like, oh, you know, we talked before on this show about camping. Now, I like to go camping. A lot of people might be like, I like the outdoors.
That would be the most boring VR experience ever.
No, but think about it. Someone's like, I like camping,
Yeah.
or you know, like sometimes like to just get away from the city, you know, the hustle bustle, but I hate bugs. Put on your VR mask. Maybe it's photorealistic reality created, you know, noise, everything. It just offers such an opportunity for people to disengage with reality. And as much as, you know, if you could fully download your brain into like a matrix and just be an online person, I'm sure that will happen somewhere down the line too. I would not doubt it. But at the moment, we're still physical beings. We evolved to interact with the real world and the virtual world. And you know, as you say, baby steps and all that, but the potential is huge. And when I saw it, I'm like, stuff is gonna happen. It's gonna be super interesting, and there's so many experiences that people are just gonna be like, well, why would I bother like learning how to become good at snowboarding if I can just strap on my VR mask? Sweet, same difference, you know. I just think it offers this easy easy way out for people to just be like, well, why try? Like, why should I
I,
try this or
I
that?
think
I
that's a
can just do
fallacy.
it.
It's those things that excite people to get good at the stuff. Like if you think about,
Maybe,
there were
maybe you're right.
skateboarding. Like I was big in skateboarding when I was a teenager, and what got me into it was watching all the awesome people doing it on video. So I just feel like that would continue if you were like, oh, I'm 8 years old, I've strapped on this thing, now I'm a pianist in the front of a giant audience, and I get to do, I'm like a crazy pianist, except I'm not really playing the piano. And then
Let's face
there's
it,
all
8-year-olds are not going to
there's
play
all kinds
piano
of just
VR
let me finish
games.
my story. And then there's like standing ovation, and then a family comes and hugs and kisses the child or whoever, like, and the kid's like, wow, if I work hard, I can have that experience really. And I think that could motivate people. Aside from that whole like, doomsday, or what's the word for it? Just like worst case scenario, negative side. Well, not you, but I think
You
everyone.
guys, okay,
I think everyone looks at virtual reality and says like it could go really wrong.
I'd like to step in here for a sec because you guys are pretty much doing the exact same thing. You're engaging in speculation off. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Where Beau was like, imagine you're on the moon and then everybody can see it. And then Mike's like, imagine that you're camping because you don't want to camp, but you get to camp with this VR. And it's like, imagine you can be a pianist playing with your pianist all the time.
Okay, yeah. Point being.
So my point is,
This argument never ends.
You guys are both, one of you's going glass half empty, glass half full. I think we should roll into verdicts, and you can either marry your position or alter it or whatever, but like you clearly know where you're going.
Okay. Well, let's bring those animals in. You guys good with that?
Order, I say. Order in the court.
You could be the judge.
Order in the cart. Yeah, virtual reality, good, bad, or bullshit would be pretty awesome too. So we need to get on that production. All right, who wants to go first? I can go first, but you guys kind of know what my verdict's going to be.
I know what you should go first because I know what your verdict is. I'm not sure what mine is as much as you might think.
All right, so well, I've said a lot that I've had to say. I think virtual reality is long overdue because they were already talking about that when I was like in my teens, but the tech wasn't there. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, it's like the tech's here and virtual reality's coming, and like I'm all on the hype bandwagon. I think personally, I hope I live to see the day where we can share minds with other people. I feel like, we have a lot of hate speech in the world right now where we're still sort of trying to understand gender roles. We're still trying to understand sexuality. And I feel like the biggest thing that we can do to break down those barriers is see what it's like to be one of those marginalized groups and to actually even enforce it maybe in like our education programs where we learn to have empathy for people that are different for us. So I view virtual reality as a step in that direction. And also with Crofton, I love sweet gaming experiences. So I mean, just for that alone, that's also like, the hedonistic side of me just thinks there's a lot of fun to be had with VR, but I also think it's a positive social force overall. So I'm going to say that virtual reality is good. There you have it.
Mike, you should probably go next because you guys are the two extremes. And then
I sort of think you should go next because it'd be like a gradient, but whatever. Okay. When Beau was talking about those in his verdict, I was like, man, I so disagree. The empathy point is a good one. You see something from other people's perspective. That's not how human beings are going to act in VR. Again, I'm speculating. It's not how people have it. Like pornography has not made people more in touch with how sexuality really is. It has made people objectify people more. Like we did pornography on this thing. I think that virtual reality is going to allow people to just create a reality to suit them. They're gonna use it the same way we use the internet, full of trolls, people holed up in their own little bits. It's not made the like you saying it breaking down barriers. I just don't see it. I think Crofton was more touching on this as a valuable tool. It's going to have some really neat applications. There is no doubt, and I'm sure there will be some positives. But I really do think like the kind of social degradation that it may cause, and I'm basing this just on some of the things that where I see that I think are not good in our society, based on things like overconsumption of entertainment, overconsumption of screen time and internet, and making relationships on social media instead of actual relationships, are not good for us, is kind of my view. And I think that virtual reality is just going to exacerbate that. So I don't know. I mean, the clearly it's going to be have to wait and see how this plays out, and we're all about the speculation here. But I really think this technology is going to have a net bad effect. So I'm saying bad. I'm doing it. Of course, I was on the fence with bullshit, but I'm like, man, it's yeah. Go ahead, Crow.
Yeah, no, those are good. It's funny that one of the reasons I wanted you both to go first is because of that whole speculation off aspect that I feel like has been following this. It's cool to me that we are talking about VR as a thing that exists, and not as we are speculating like crazy. But the reality is VR exists and will continue to exist and develop, and that's why we're talking about it. Whereas we could talk about things like hive minds or whatever that just completely do not exist, right? So Beau in his verdict was already talking about, like, you know, speculation of living as a minority and gaining better understanding. And Mike's, again, was his speculation was VR is going to lead to an expanding glass half empty future where everybody's addicted to screens even more so than before. So both are projection, and I think they're both 100% right in thinking about these things. I think both things are true. I think there's going to be all the things that they have projected happening. I would not be surprised if all of those things happened. And I think all of the things that Beau talked about could happen. I think all of the things Mike talked about could happen, and it wouldn't be conflicting. It would all make sense. So where does that leave me? Well, I have said many times that I'm super interested in it, and that's what's pushing me away from saying from going too negative on this, because what Mike says is it could potentially be true. And I see Mike is coming from a much more conservative sense, like being apprehensive of the future, of changes in the future, and Beau of being way super liberal and being like, oh, okay, we're gonna evolve forward, we're gonna develop ourselves to push evolution forward. So I'm certain both those things kind of make me apprehensive. So I find myself in the middle. So we have a verdict for the middle, and I was gonna take it, except for the fact that I'm just too excited about VR. So that pushes me to good. So I'm gonna say VR is good.
You gotta go with your gut. You know, you gotta go with how you feel.
I do think like the accurate thing on VR is probably bullshit. You know, like that's probably what it should be. And it's funny because not one of the three of us said that. But what are you gonna do? You can't. Yeah.
No, I was. That's where I was kind of on the fence.
It has too much agency in our world to be bullshit right now, because it's not public. It's not like a thing yet. It's a thing yet to be ubiquitous in society.
Think about some of the stuff we've called bullshit on this show, tons of stuff.
I wanted to say one thing, though. It's just there's no technology that exists that will open up a person's mind whose mind is already closed to learning. And I don't think VR or even mind melding would do that unless it was forced. But we also don't have that ethic of forcing people to do things. Anyways,
right.
I just want to say, like,
increased connectivity of the internet has sure made sure there's no bigots on the internet.
No,
because there's too much information there to inform people.
It's true. Everybody is super polite.
If anything, Reddit,
they should call it the polite net.
If anything, Reddit is offering them places to congregate, according to
and they'll have their little like neo-Nazi VR rooms that you can go in and do whatever you want.
That would be
that
would be a bad room to accidentally walk in in cyberspace. You're like, oh, is this men who love kayaking?
What's great is you could get your swastika tattoos, but then they wouldn't exist in the real life, so you wouldn't have to worry about it. You could just get them like temporarily.
That's not great.
Okay, good listeners. If you have some other opinions about VR and its potential implications, we would love to hear about them. You can send an email to us, goodbadbull@gmail.com. And of course, you can subscribe to our show at Stitcher and iTunes. You can also like us on Facebook. And our website, goodbadbull.com. You can find all that information and listen to some of our shows there. And of course, you can give us a tweet at goodbadbull. And speaking of the tweets, Beau, if our listeners want to tweet something at you.
You can find me on Twitter at Beau Schwartz, and you'll see things like tweets about good, bad, or bullshit, and the ! Podcast, and the Heroes of the Pants tournament, which our team is currently kicking ass in, as well as you'll find all of my pro virtual reality tweets there.
Propaganda.
Yes.
And Crofton, where in the VR world can people find you?
Well, one thing that nobody mentioned was that Facebook bought Oculus Rift. So they'll be able to soon find me navigating my sweet Facebook rooms with my VR helmet. But in the meantime, I'm just going to have to use old school Twitter at Crofton Steers.
At Crofton Steers. And I can't believe I'm going to say it, at ML Hodgins. I've been tweeting a little bit now that we have the stickers, and I've been sticking things in the real world. In VR,
it's the good, bad, or bullshit viral campaign.
Hey, you know what? We should stop just sticking stickers on things. We should just take photos and Photoshop stickers onto them, like we stuck.
That would be better than real reality.
I mean,
it's virtual reality right there.
One would see it.
It'd be much easier to stick one on a cop car if it was not really on the cop car.
Crofton's been planning this major heist, What do you call it? Is it a sting? I don't know.
There's these cop cars that park every morning around the corner from my house at the diner.
And you're going to stick one.
Well, I was like, maybe I won't stick it, but I'll just put it under like the windshield wiper or whatever, and then go back.
You're not going to put it on.
No, but I take a photo of the car and then I remove it because I don't want to get busted. I have a baby on me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. And it's funny. I was definitely living in the fear of the future thing, and it's true that I did have the conservative view on that. I think with progress, there's always winners and losers, which Crofton rightly pointed out. But one thing Beau said that I really wanted to take issue with was it's next step in evolution, and that is it's a complete misunderstanding of how evolution works. That it is forward in. Well, no, I
didn't get enough time to explain why it was the next step in evolution.
No, because the thing is,
it's not how evolution works. I know evolution is a response to outside pressure.
Right,
and VR is not outside pressure.
It doesn't take you forward, it won't make you smarter or anything like that. So when you're saying this will be the next step in evolution, he's yeah, it might be, and it might make us into blobs that are dumb and they're just lie there. It might not.
No, it wouldn't do that because it exerts no pressure, right? It's
anyway,
pressure.
The thing is, evolution is an unknown entity. How we will respond to new things, we do not know, and you can't assume they'll be positive.
I just think we need to ditch our bodies. I think the thing that we need to evolve is to we have our minds, but not our bodies. We don't need these things.
I feel all this is because maybe you're unsatisfied, with your life, and the idea of this offers so much possibility to you of just I could just throw off everything and start anew.
But space travel, my body is such an impediment to space travel. Our bodies are. If we can travel space and not have
why do you want to travel in space? Anyway,
to explore.
Is there something there you want to do?
What do we do on Earth except eat things and have sex?
We're human beings. This is what we're supposed to be. You're I want to go to Pluto.
But who says we're supposed to be here? No one says we're supposed. No one says we're supposed to be here. There's no God saying thou shalt stay on Earth and live in it. There are no boundaries and no rules except the ones we set for ourselves.
I would love how Beau makes himself immortal through transferring his brain into a computer. Sends it off into space. It's a million years in the future. He's oh God, this fucking endless void. Gas giant. Oh, there's no life here. It's so boring. I wish I died a million years ago.
That actually sounds like the beginning of a really good, funny.
Where's the Wi-Fi spot? I really want to play Hearthstone.
Yeah, there's no video games out here.
There's no Wi-Fi out here.
It's one of those things that's such a false it seems good because we have this fear of death, but I feel like it's like what Breck was telling us about that. It was this friend of Breck's told me that he had a math teacher who said if you lived forever, it would become a mathematical certainty that at some point you would just become trapped somewhere which you could not escape from, and that's where you would live for the rest of eternity. I'm like, man, like that sounds shitty. Immortality sounds good. It's not. Like
that assumes you have a body, though, right? It assumes
no.
you
Even if you have no, if you have, you still have a mind. Like things like depression, sadness, loneliness. You had a million years alone, you'd become so insane, and you could never die. Like honestly, like you're not thinking about it logically. It would be terrible.
Well, I never said immortal. You said immortal.
You're like, well, shut down. You're just gonna go.
I just think there are things that our minds still can't comprehend, that we can't see, that we can get to, and so I wouldn't assume it's on any evolution to be on in any vector that we necessarily understand at this point in time.
All I have to say, this is a fun conversation, and I'm glad I had the polar opposite
All right,
views.
let's turn off the stream. Thanks for tuning in on the live stream. If you did,
thanks everybody.
Bye now.
I cameoed on this episode.
Was there any?
Shut up, you crying about not being on the show.